tonight, last but not least for our spring and summer series, we have with us the senior curator of the Brandywine Museum of Art, Miss Amanda Burdan, who will be give us a lecture tonight on N.C. Wyeth and his mural that he originally painted for a bank, if I'm not mistaken, that will be unveiled. When is the unveiling?
It's open now.
Oh, it's open now. So if you guys don't know about the Brandywine Art Museum, go today. It's my favorite art museum. Andrew Wyeth is my personal favorite artist. So I'm very excited to hear more about this. So now I'll turn this over to Amanda. Amanda, please come. Thank you. Is that going in well? All right.
It's going to get there. And here's the clicker. I'll try and remember to say this at the end too, but that mural, which is now open for tours, tickets go on sale tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So yeah, it's timely because we started last December, but we could only release small batches of tickets and they've all sold out within a day. Tomorrow we can release the rest of the year. So we're hoping a lot more people get a chance to see this mural. So today I'm not really talking about the art history of the mural, but I want to talk about the whole story behind the mural, because there's always a story behind a story. Every work of art has a lot of things that go into it that make it happen, and this one in particular has been really juicy in the archives for me to figure out how it came to be and why it came to be and all the factors that go into it. So I'm going to talk tonight about a couple things. One is the background. N.C. Wyeth is known as an illustrator, but I'm talking about a mural, and that is not his typical mode of working. It's not how a lot of people know him, but he was, starting in the 1920s, an intense muralist too. He did commissions for businesses and government buildings. He did murals at the Missouri State Capitol building. It's one of his first mural commissions. It's just something people don't know about him because they're not published in books the same way his illustrations were. And in fact, you had to go, as public art, it's best if you can go and see it in real life, because what I'll show you here is going to be so teeny tiny compared to the actual mural, which is 60 feet across. So we'll talk also about how the commission came to be. That's where some more of the research came in. That's where my job came in. And then I'll walk you through the themes of the mural a little bit, panel by panel, so we can get a little bit more in depth. And then I'm going to talk about the new home, which is actually a family home. N.C. Wyeth did paint this for the WSFS building in Wilmington, but now it lives in his grandson Jamie Wyeth's farm in, well, we'll say Wilmington. It's on the Pennsylvania Delaware border, so you drive in through Delaware, but the house is in Pennsylvania. So I'll count that as Delaware County too. Anyway, so without further ado, this is the mural itself. And don't worry, we're going to look at each section. It's 5 panels, but I wanted to give you a sense of the scale of it. So imagine that 60 feet across, 19 feet tall. The people are more than life size in the painting when it comes to it. This is a photograph that we took after it was conserved and reinstalled. So this is a photo that took 2 full days to shoot, and multiple images that had to be stitched together in Photoshop. We had to have scaffolding so that we could get our cameras up in front of the painting so we didn't have any distortion. So even doing something like photographing something this big can be a chore and a challenge. So we'll come back to dig into this, but where am I pointing at? There we go. I said I'd give you a little N.C. Wyeth background, and I'm not going to go into his greatest hits of Treasure Island and Robinson Crusoe and the Deer Slayer and all of those things. I'm going to start with his studio and the place that he worked in Chadds Ford, up the hill from his house. I always thought N.C. Wyeth worked very close to home. I think we counted them like 66 steps up the hill or something like that. Andrew Wyeth worked even closer because his studio is a room in his house that his kids were on the other side of the door. So this is a painting by N.C. Wyeth of his own studio when it was first built in 1911. It's relatively small and, in fact, not very good for painting big murals in. And over here is a photograph of the same thing, juxtaposed, because I found a historic photograph of it. I have to show you the historic photograph of it, but then there's the nice color here as well. So he had built this home in 1911, and for about 10, 11 years, he was very happy living and working there, doing his illustration commissions, but he's starting to edge into the broader commercial world. He gets some commissions to do decorations, not really murals, but decorations at a hotel in Utica and at a restaurant in Atlantic City. And he starts working bigger and bigger. And as he decides he's working bigger, he is contemplating what his next move will be. So this, by the way, is what the family of N.C. Wyeth looked like around the time that he was getting into mural painting. And so this is little Andy Wyeth right there. He's just a kid. He's born in 1917. So that's the whole clan. And literally everybody in this painting is creative. Photograph is creative in some way. Both the daughters, Henriette and Carolyn, were painters. Anne was a pianist. Nat was an inventor. All the kids grew up to be really special and talented in their own ways. But NC had thought, well, maybe it was time to leave Chad's Ford, and he took his whole family up to Needham, Massachusetts, where he was from. And he tried to sort of relive his youth, and he sent his kids to the same one-room schoolhouse that he attended when he was a kid, and let's just say Needham was not the same as he remembered when he was young. And so while he's in Needham, he starts to get Bank of Boston mural commissions. And he's already got a 1921, the Missouri State Capitol Commission, which is very tough to do, a 12-foot mural in his small space. So when he comes back from Needham, Massachusetts, in 1923, he decides he's going to build onto the studio. So this whole end there is specifically for doing murals. So that's how important it was to his process for his future career. He was making this big investment. And if you haven't been there, visiting the studio is part of the mural tour. And here is just where's the computer? Just a peek inside the mural studio that shows not a 20-foot tall mural, but a rather big mural that was from the Penn Mutual Life Insurance Company in Philadelphia, who donated the painting back to the museum after they sold their building in 1997. This is a problem with murals. When the building gets sold, the new tenant doesn't always want the mural. And this is coming up a lot in Washington, D.C. recently about tenants and murals and things that should stay where they are. It's tough to place a mural in a museum. And in fact, this one lives in the studio because it is too big to come inside our building. And this is the same problem that was faced with the Apotheosis of the Family mural down in Wilmington when it came time to move that business and sell that building. So you see he's got lots of space, and he's got this big staircase that he can create all sizes of things on. In fact, he turns out he was really pretty proud of the murals that he was doing because he had yes.
The mural in the previous slide.
Yeah.
Is that a finished painting, or
This is the finished painting. It is the finished painting. There are studies for it. We have some images of those studies, but this is the one that hung on the wall at the insurance company in Philadelphia. And of course,
I don't see a lot of detail.
Oh, well.
That could be my eyes.
It could be this because it's about 12 feet tall. So when you get up close to it, there's a lot of detail in it. But remember, since it was made to be on a wall and sometimes high up in the air, you could get away with not having the detail. So not surprisingly, Penn Mutual Life Insurance wanted an image of William Penn for their building. So this is N.C. Wyeth, other than those first few things, really always was doing historical things like Washington's entry into Trenton here on the mural that he had. If you want to see that now, it's at a college in New Jersey, as opposed to the original bank that it was in. Over on the left-hand side is one of those Boston murals he worked on again. But you can see that staircase in use, and he had himself photographed in front of these things a lot. I think he was really proud, and the image on the left-hand side stayed on his desk in a frame for the rest of his life. So he definitely took some pride in doing these kinds of commissions and moving away from illustration, which he started to question whether it was really doing art. He wanted bigger and better, and this is a time when the Mexican muralists are starting to not just paint in Mexico, but come into the United States. It's just preceding the time when the WPA artists are going to be doing a lot of mural work as well. Rivera and Thomas Hart Benton were in New York City working on murals. And for NC to step into the mural arena at this time was taking a chance on doing something the other contemporary artists were working on. So I want to tell you about the commission of this mural before we really get into analyzing it. As we mentioned, it was for WSFS. In 1932, they were celebrating their 100th anniversary. And in 1932, they were also still trying to come back from the stock market crash and encourage a lot of the citizens of Wilmington to go back to trusting and using their banks and to have savings accounts, and reminding them what they might be saving for. So all the press that went along with this mural, and here, let me show you. There is the building. My goodness, I lost a slide there somewhere. All of the press that went into, or all of the press about this mural is where I got a lot of this information. What you're missing on that side, I don't know if you can see it on the computer or not, is a photograph of the bank president. Doesn't make any difference. The bank president, Frederick Stone, was the one who commissioned this, had the idea that in order to celebrate the centennial, we should have art. Now, a little bit of background about Frederick Stone. He had a daughter that was going to PAFA and was studying sculpture. His daughter had just met a modern artist named Ralston Crawford, who went on to be a very famous American artist. And they were living in Wilmington, and eventually they would move to, guess where, Chadds Ford. So Frederick Stone, unlike many parents, seemed to encourage his daughter to go towards art, and thought that art would be the great way to celebrate the centennial of the bank. There's many interviews with him in the Wilmington papers about this vision that he had of color and inspiration for the American people, and making sure that everyone understood that WSFS would be there for another 100 years. There was not much discussion about what the topic of the mural will be, and so we will get to that as well. And as I went through the archival records, N.C. Wyeth wrote only one time about this mural. It's unusual to me. It's his largest commission ever, 60 feet long, and he mentions it only in passing to his brother Stimson. He says, "I am deeply stirred by John Dryden's translation of Virgil's pastorals. I realize fully what a great force these will be in the doing of the 30 by 60 foot panel for the Wilmington Bank." Luckily, just in 2024, we were gifted N.C. Wyeth's collected correspondence. So we are going through from his birth in 1882. We're up to 1914 right now in cataloging. I mean, we're not even at the point of digitizing yet, but I can skip ahead and read all the letters I want. And I found this one to his brother in February 1931. The newspapers had before then said he'd already begun painting this thing because he was commissioned in 1929, but he sat on it until at least 1931. I have found another sketch dated February 31 that he wrote on it first study for the mural. So he painted his mural in less than a year. And then this is what it looked like when it was installed in the bank, 12 feet up in the air. So again, you might not have even been able to appreciate some of the details. Now it's installed down low so you can walk up to it. Please don't touch it, but you could touch it because it's right in front of you. So when folks went into the Wilmington Trust Bank anytime between 1932 and 2008, this is what they saw. However, 2008 is a critical year. The bank had sold this building, had built a new building, moved to the new building, and they did not take the mural. Frederick Stone had been given A Study of the Mural by N.C. Wyeth. That's the only other letter we have that talks about the mural, and it's from Frederick Stone, and the only reason we have it is because it starts out, "Dear Mr. Wyeth, I'm so sorry I wasn't at home when you stopped by," and then he goes on to write about these things. So all of this was taking place in person, so there's no written record. We have no contract for this mural. Some of the murals we do, we have no notes, nothing. Everything was in person. So I'm scrounging in the archive for what I can find. The mural itself, as I said, there's no instruction from the bank as to what it should be, other than signifying the importance of family and the importance of thrift and saving for your future. The image I'm showing you here is actually a slide that N.C. Wyeth made. It was part of his technique was to make his drawings or his presentation paintings, as he called them, have them photographed and then project them using a magic lantern in his studio and trace out the general outlines. So we have all of his slides in our collection. So went through and found one that is an interesting charcoal study for the central panel of our project here, much further along than it would have been in February 1931. Let's go back to the big mural again now. So I want to walk you through the meaning, so to speak, of this, or just by breaking it down. It's called Apotheosis of the Family. We know the bank wanted it, and they wanted to emphasize the importance of family. Apotheosis, the two parts of this title are important to understand. The apotheosis portion, which means to elevate, to deify, to honor. A lot of paintings in the history of art have been apotheoses of famous figures, and in fact, here is one, maybe you've seen it in person. This is in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. It's called the Apotheosis of Washington, and it's this great, glorious, very much like a religious painting of George Washington ascending into heaven, but instead of saints and angels all around him, it's personifications and allegories of, say, the 13 colonies, ideals like independence and freedom and liberty, and I'll point out here's GW, and right below him is, many victories trampling over the terrible oppressions of the monarchy. Also somewhere in here, right over here. On one end of the rainbow is Ben Franklin. On the other end of the rainbow, I actually don't know what's there. Apotheosis of Ben Franklin is also a very popular subject in American art. So we've got the apotheosis portion down. In fact, N.C. Wyeth did an apotheosis of Ben Franklin for a bank, which we have the study for, but the actual painting itself is now at the University of Pennsylvania. So if you wander a building there, you might find it. It's his tallest mural, which is 40 feet tall, I believe. Anyway, the other half of this story, there's apotheosis, and then there's the family. N.C. Wyeth thought his family was just great. They were all creative. They were all shaped in his image and modeled on what he wanted to do for a living. In fact, he had plans to paint a mural of his own family. So here they are, each of them showing off their talents in the study for it. Andrew is just enthralled by his sister, Carolyn, who's looking into this big glass jar, which appears in a lot of the paintings. Behind is the brother Nat with a model ship. He was a miniature maker and a model builder. Over on the far left-hand side, Henriette has a palette in her hand. N.C. Wyeth has a paintbrush. You get the idea. Everybody's a genius in this family. They never went on to paint this painting, but I sort of think the timing is interesting. He's thinking of doing a mural of his family in 27. He gets a commission in 29. And it's supposed to be about the family, and lo and behold, we get essentially an apotheosis, not just of the family, but of N.C. Wyeth's family in the mural that he eventually paints. So much so that he has his kids model for the mural. N.C. Wyeth, much to his chagrin, was forever immortalized as a naked youth on the wall of the bank in Wilmington. The drawing that N.C. Wyeth sketched out on the left-hand side, we have it as an actual drawing. We have it, other members of the family is in studies like Henriette, well, not Henriette, Brother Nat modeled, Sister Anne modeled, and then there are other neighbors that modeled. So we have a set of maybe about 10 sketches that imitate the poses in the mural. In fact, Andrew is not in there once but twice. That's Andrew on the left-hand side, and then a figure in the mural that's actually representing a totally different person. So he incorporated his family, but it's not very specifically his family. The idea was, of course, to have it be the timeless concept of family and not something that is just N.C. Wyeth related. So what I want to do is take you across the canvas. There's a lot going on in this painting, as you can imagine, 60 feet of a lot going on. If you imagine the whole painting, you've got bookends on either side that are stopping your vision from going out and wandering off. You pay attention, and everything, every line of the composition, every shape, every form is drawing your attention back to the center. No matter where you look, some line or gaze or force will bring you back to the center of the painting, which is the family. Starting from the left-hand side, what you'll notice when you're there is it shows all forms or all seasons of the year, all stages of the life of humans, all geographies of the United States. It shows not all, but it shows sort of the birth of agriculture and the transition from hunter and gatherer societies to agricultural societies to early industrialism. So for instance, on this side, coming out of the deep wood, we have literally our hunters and gatherers that are coming out. They've got baskets of fruit. You might imagine that Andrew Wyeth is as a boy with a bow standing there because he's a hunter. There are also fishermen in the scene as well. We've got our Purple Mountains Majesty in the background. Proceeding towards the center, you start to get the idea in the background there that there's some farming going on as well. So you'll see some plowing with oxen, you'll see sowing seeds, you'll also see there's our Purple Mountains, but now it's not deep summer anymore. We're moving into spring. Those are cotton candy pink colored flowering trees. In the foreground here, this is something that Nat Wyeth posed for, and then this is a neighbor. But that is the oldest person represented with gray hair, and he's someone that's doing these handcrafts of weaving a basket. That's going to have a parallel on the other side of the mural, so remember him. We're moving towards the center now. The original study for this really just looked like a Holy Family. It really looked like a nativity scene. Everybody's gathered around. There's a child in arms. There's all the animals adoring. And I imagine that might have been a little feedback he got from that. The first studies was, this is feeling like a religious painting. It feels like something straight out of a Christmas pageant or something like that. So he did turn to Virgil. He turned to these pastoral and Arcadian visions of a perfect and timeless world and started to transform his vision that way. We have the family standing at the center. They're now master of these animals, everything from the oxen to the dog at the feet to the bees that they're keeping. Another theme that emerges and is something that I think is important today is the harmony with which these people live within nature. So they are taking care of the land, they are using the land, but they are also nurturing not just their own family, but the land itself. Folks have pointed out that there's not enough kids in there if it's the Wyeth family, and I say yes, and Andrew Wyeth is in there twice if it's the Wyeth family. But one thing I do think resonates with N.C. Wyeth's own life. Right at the time this was being painted, N.C. Wyeth had his first grandchild. And so the image of the woman with the baby in her arms had to have been at least somewhat sentimental and significant for him because his daughter Henriette had just given birth and was living with them at the time. So he got to experience having a newborn around the house again at this time in his life. As we progress across the mural, we've got more things like, oh, by the way, it's fall now. We've got golden trees, we've got pastures, we've got a stream that runs through the whole thing and connects it. The people in the background here are herding, and we have a couple of mythological or supernatural beings. We had one on one side. On the other side here is the figure of a man. Is it a Roman god? Is it a Norse god? Is it the spirit of winter? Whatever it might be. But this is not simply reality. This is a perfect world that he's representing. We're going to keep moving across because over on the other side, where the sea is, it's winter over here, by the way. We have another set of trees, again, kicking us back in. You realize all people are moving towards the center of the panel all the time. But now instead of someone weaving a basket with these rushes, we have people building boats, which actually has very similar form to the basket that was being built. Now we are shipping, we are trading, there's goods being brought in. So we're not just fishing and we are cutting lumber and working wood and building structures and houses and trading with probably other communities, other societies as well. So there's a lot. I mean, you could hold a long time just trying to find all the correspondences between the panels, the different themes, the different sort of secrets and hidden Easter eggs that are in this. I literally still see something new every time I visited, and I've been there like 36 times in the last year, so it's a lot. There is one last very interesting part of our background story here is the fact that this mural got a new home. So where last we left the story, it was 2008, and WSFS had moved. They went to their new headquarters. Frederick Stone took with them the presentation painting that N.C. Wyeth had given him that day he wasn't home. And they hung the presentation painting in the new bank. And the old mural in the old bank remained. It was bought by a company that was going to make it first a hotel, then condominiums. At first they said they could accommodate the mural in the design of their lobby, and then they said, no, we can't. So there was a push in the year 2007 to go to any possible museum or organization that might be able to take the mural. And it's very big. It was very difficult to consider this. Actually, eventually the Delaware Historical Society stepped up and they said they would take it, and they had plans to have it conserved and outfit an area in their library to display it. But then the Great Recession happened and the funds never happened. And this painting, which was taken off the wall rather quickly, there's a whole other conservation story. Yeah. So it's canvas, and then it's glued to the wall. What do we glue it with? Why, lead white paint, of course. And because it was so large and so heavy, there's a double layer. There's an extra backing and another layer of lead white paint. So part of the problem with taking it down was that it was lead. And it was dangerous to breathe and dangerous to touch, and it needed remediation. And that's another reason people didn't want to touch it in terms of taking it as a gift. Can you imagine? Here is a wonderful painting, but you're going to have to spend about $1 million to clean it up and be able to display it somewhere again. So there's an even longer story, and if you do get on this tour or look at some of our online material, you'll see a little bit more of the story of the conservation. It was eventually conserved because Jamie Wyeth went to Delaware Historical Society and said, it's been in storage for so long, I really would like this to be back on display. And he undertook to fund the restoration of the painting, which had not just its lead problems, but problems with how fast it had been taken down and the way it had been stored. And so this is a photograph from maybe 3 years ago when the work on this panel was completed as it was being restored. I'll tell you one little thing, the mural was rolled very tightly with the paint side in, and that's the opposite of what you ever want to do if you have to roll a painting, because the paint can expand but it can't contract, so when you roll it inward you get cracks. This thing had hundreds of crack lines all across the surface of it, and everyone had to be in-painted. They developed a system of a rolling bridge that went across the floor, and the conservators laid on their stomachs on the rolling bridge and painted on the floor. So this is the vision coming together, but then where do you put a painting like this? Well, if you're Jamie Wyeth, you build a barn for it. This is the barn that Jamie designed for the mural. It was a question, like, what do? You just make a building for one painting? Is it one long hallway? Is it, how high do you put it? What do you do? So they thought about the site that it would be, which is on his farm, called Point Lookout Farm, which is a horse farm, but it's a working farm. And they went back to a couple of different influences. One is something called a hot walker that is used to walk racehorses, cool them down after exercising, sort of like the basic concept of a carousel, but with live horses on it. That roundness, and they combined it with the shaker barn. Here's the Hancock Shaker Village version of the round barn, which is super efficient, has a lot of nifty things like a lantern to let light in, and all these different access points. And there are round barns in other places that aren't shaker, but combining the two, they came up with the idea to put this mural in the round, so that when you're standing in the middle of the room, you're partly surrounded by it, which is a very mid-20th century thing to think about. If you're thinking about, abstract expressionism, Jackson Pollock, Mark Rothko, they wanted you to be absorbed in their painting. So here we're doing the same thing, just some shots of constructing the barn. It is not an ancient barn that was always there. It's made of steel, it's covered in cinder blocks, it's been stuccoed over, but it's got HVAC that a modern museum would want to have. It's got light controls, LEDs. We can adjust the light any way we need to. It was tough getting the mural into here, though, because that door is not quite big enough to take a giant mural in. So that's how the mural was transported panel by panel on a much bigger roll after it was conserved, rolled the right direction, and carried across a construction site and taken inside. They could only do one panel at a time, because what they needed to do was then affix the mural panel to a big support. And in this case, it's a piece of acrylic onto which they've glued the panel, and the acrylic is curved, the same matching curve of the barn's wall. They did not use lead white paint. They used a special glue from Germany that they had to get by like 10-gallon barrels to have enough to do this, and roll it through a machine that applied the adhesive and slid it onto these panels. And then those panels, as you see, were raised up on like small cranes mounted to the ceiling and set into place, because this panel, this plexiglass, this acrylic rather, had mounts on the back of it, so it's on cleats. It actually can be lifted up very easily if you ever needed to, remove it. It's never coming out of there, though, because the door is not big enough to let the panel out. I'm sure we'd come up with something if we had to, but any conservation further, anything that would need to be done would be scaffolding put up inside this building. Here's just a couple more shots as it was getting closer and closer to finished. It ended up having its debut July 29th last year. The very last panel was hung. I was there. I took pictures. I clapped. Then I had to put together a tour. So we learned very soon afterwards that the Brandywine will be responsible for bringing visitors and guests there. So this is the painting as you will encounter it today. If you go down to the barn, it's much lower to the ground. It's got this curve in it. You can walk right up to it. There's no barriers. It's not way over your head. Some of the things that have been revealed to us is the fact that, for instance, there's 2 signatures on this, because NC signed it in his studio, and then he hung it on the wall, and they always put a fabric frame around his murals. calculations were off and the frame covered his signature, so he had to sign it again. But displayed in this way, where there's no fabric frame on it, you see both of the signatures. There's still work to be done conservation-wise, but it is way better than having it rolled up and in a storage shed somewhere in Wilmington, Delaware. And it has been really interesting to see people coming to visit who remember seeing it in Wilmington, growing up all their lives. And then there are people who have never seen it at all, and this is a totally new thing for them. So when we give the tour, we combine it with a tour of NC Wyeth Studio so people can see where this mural was made. And if I'm tricky enough to go backwards to one of my slides before, just the incidental, one of those historic images of NC Wyeth in the barn, or rather in the mural studio. New home. Will it keep going back? Oh, I must have exited it. C'est la vie. The one called, here we go, it's Commission of the Mural. Nope, back, forward one from there. There we go. This image, you see, if you look closely, yeah, it's NC Wyeth sitting on his ladder working on the central panel of the Apotheosis of the family, and he's up there at the top of the ladder. So we bring people to the studio, we bring our archival material out, we bring people to see the mural, and it's literally this total package experience. And as I said at the beginning, if you're interested, more tickets go on sale tomorrow at 10 a.m. You go to brandywine.org/mural. And I'll also take this opportunity to let you know that we're starting another new tour this summer. Debuts July 2nd or 3rd. Whichever one is the Friday. 3rd, that's the Friday. It is the first time people will be able to go to Andrew and Betsy Wyeth's house at Britton's Mill. So we'll be taking folks to the Andrew Wyeth studio first, and then over to the mill property. There is the granary. You'll be able to go into the granary, which is the first place the family lived, and tour around the mill house and the mill building itself, which was completely restored by Betsy. She said she needed to be able to make at least one loaf of bread from flour that she had ground herself in her mill, and that's what she did and never used it again. But this is in conjunction with the new exhibition we have opening late in June. So that's another thing to keep a lookout for the exhibition. So apparently we're doing tours of every place the Wyeths ever visited or touched. But thank you. I'm happy to answer more questions. There's so much more to the story. Yeah. Thanks.
Can I ask, who were the conservators and who were the architects that designed the barn?
Yeah, so the conservator was Kristen DiGataldi, and she was from Winterthur. She trained with Joyce Hill Stoner. This mural actually had been conserved 5 times in its life. The first 2 were, we know the names, but of no one, living anymore. But Joyce and her students did the last conservation on it before it came down. In 1997, they thought they were conserving it and doing a cleaning on it of something that would be there another 100 years. It came down and was not done with the help of the conservator, but now Kristen, who is a student of Joyce, has been working on this for years. And then the architect there's an architect of record, there's a builder, King Construction. But the concept really came from Jamie directing, the folks who are building it for him to get these features of the shaker barn. And, it's not bold and daring new architecture that's designed to, it is very traditional architecture, but it's now made with modern materials. So in that sense, architecturally, Jamie said, make it look like historic buildings. Yes. I know there is an architect of record because it's in Delaware and it needs to have one, but I don't know the name of that person. Yeah.
Is this the first time that you're going to have tours of all the houses and the buildings, or have they been open to the public before?
So Britton's Mill has never been open to the public. So that's the one that starts July 2nd.
But
The others have already, you can.
Yes, yes. So you can go. We run tours of those. Andrew Wyeth's house and studio, the original one. We call it the schoolhouse. The studio that he was working in, right up till when he died. N.C. Wyeth's house, which you didn't see here, but was also built in 1911. N.C. Wyeth's studio, and the Kerner Farm, where Andrew Wyeth did a lot of painting. A farm just over the hill. He worked there for 70 years. It was sort of an alternate studio for him. So we run tours of all of those properties between April 1st and Thanksgiving every year. Yeah.
This is just another building.
This is another building. This is like, add one more. We had to get a different vehicle. We weren't allowed, interstate commerce laws, we weren't allowed to take our big vehicle down there. We had to have a little, yes, exactly. We don't have federal driver's licenses. So we had to have a much smaller vehicle. But once you see it or you visit or see a news report on it, Jamie's driveway is teeny tiny. And so you couldn't have taken a bus on it anyway. Yeah, it is not exactly built for tourists. So when you visit, you do get to go through, Jamie and his wife had racehorses. You get to go through one of the barns. The horses are there that are the offspring of his Belmont winning horse. And, it's lovely scenery. And you hear about the conservation efforts on the farm as well as the historic efforts. Yeah.
Have you ever done a tour of Jamie's mural at the Air National Guard?
No, and I have tried to go see that. And
I'd love to see
I went through all the process of submitting my IDs and filling out paperwork and had an appointment, and then I was called and told that my appointment was canceled and no one would be seeing it. So I've never seen it in person.
Talk at the Big Czar.
Yeah.
And somebody used to work on the Bruce page
Yep.
with Jamie. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that mural is done on parachute material. Yeah. Also not really great for conservation, Jamie.
That's what Mural Arts does all
Yeah.
the murals on,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Parachute and silk or
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's nylon.
Yeah, nylon. He did it so that's 60. He's 80 this year. It was, when he was like 19 or 20 and doing his service. So, at the Air National Guard. Yeah, so you're right. Jamie has done a mural. Andrew, no murals. But he had a mural studio available if he had wanted to. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
How many murals has he painted in his lifetime?
Something like NC did about 13 mural commissions, although many of them were multi-panel. So like the MetLife building, one of the last ones he did, had over 40 panels to it. So he went from those very first decorative ones. Both of those decorative ones he did were lost. Building burned, building was demolished. So the earliest mural that we have of N.C. Wyeth is the 1921 Missouri State Capitol building. All of the others since then have been preserved in one way, shape, or form. Because he painted them on canvas and not the traditional fresco style, you could remove them from the wall, restretch them later on, or put them on strainers or mount them on another wall. So all of them are preserved, and everyone but Apotheosis is a historic scene. So we've got pilgrims, and we've got Civil War battles, and we've got George Washington and Trenton, and we've got Columbus's ships. A lot of, given the time period that he was working on, there was a lot of themes drawn from the colonial revival that people wanted to have in their bank, insurance company, school, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Who manufactured his paint?
Well, he bought commercially available paint in Philadelphia, and so Winsor Newton is one that he used a lot, and he actually had a deal with an art supply store in Philadelphia. He appeared in their advertisements. There'd be a photograph of N.C. Wyeth with his palette, and there'd be a nice table there, and they're selling maybe the tilt top table, or they're selling the palette. So I believe he got quite a discount on his materials too, because he was the spokesmodel. Yeah. He got some experimental colors from DuPont. His son Nat, the inventor, went on to get his degree at University of Pennsylvania, and he worked for DuPont. And brought home some of the first experimental applications of phthalo blue paint. It's a very common color that artists use all the time nowadays, but it was a new color from DuPont, and N.C. Wyeth had a few paintings that are brilliant, literally glowing almost, because he was given samples of these paint colors to use, and no one had had paint colors like that before ever. So
How did he preserve the paint? Did he varnish his canvases?
he did varnish most of his canvas. He did not, this is technical, but he didn't line most of his canvases. He did varnish them a little bit, not a lot. And it was very common, these 5 campaigns of restoration for this, conservation for this painting, it's very common. You take a layer of varnish off. The varnish is there to protect, and it absorbs the smoke and absorbs the, you know, the pollution and all of those things. And you take off that layer and you put a new layer on. So while it was varnished, that doesn't mean it has stayed stuck in amber. It has changed over time, and we still do cleaning of canvases with varnishes that can be removed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if most of NC's stuff were these sort of painted illustrations,
Mm-hmm.
were then photographed, right?
Yeah.
Were those finished differently than the murals?
The murals, you know, that's a good point. The mural was varnished. His paintings were often varnished, but again, he would sell them. They'd go out into the world and he wouldn't see them again. So he didn't control how they were varnished, revarnished, or treated afterwards.
Would you want to varnish them after the photographing, or?
Oh, yeah. So these days, we don't really use a very high, a shine gloss varnish. You'll see old varnishes that are very glossy. And normally I wait and photograph all our artworks until after they've been to the conservator, because I don't want to spend the money on the photographer and then say, oh, it looks so much better now. I wish I had a photograph of this. And so that's part of the reason why we had that photographer come. It had just been hung. It was fresh and clean. It didn't even have a year of air on it yet. And so it was photographed fresh. So now we'll always have that record too. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, come on down, because even if you don't see the mural, there's plenty to see at the museum related to Mr. Wyeth. You'll be seeing a lot of him coming up in the future. There's a new documentary coming out late this summer, in line with the Andrew Wyeth documentary that was on American Masters a few years ago, and the Jamie Wyeth one that came out a couple years ago. Same production crew is finishing their NC Wyeth one. And a few weeks ago, George Lucas sent a crew to film at the studio and in the museum. He's creating a six-part series on the history of illustration. So he has his own museum opening. So yeah, he loves NC Wyeth, collects a lot of his paintings. So see, now we're fully dark. This is perfect.
Well, thank you, Amanda. Everyone sounds like Amanda. If you have any questions about the Brandywine Museum of Art, Amanda would be happy to answer them. Just to let you all know, we are going to be on State Street as the Delaware County Historical Society on July 1st.